Hey guys, and welcome to That Was History. I'm Langston, your host for today. The story I have for you this time around is similar to that of the fictional tales about Mowgli in Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. Unfortunately, my story is more tragic than Mowgli's story ever was. As you can recall, Mowgli's life story began when he was lost by his parents in the Indian jungle due to a tiger attack. He was later found and raised by a pack of wolves, educated about the ways of the jungle by a bear, and constantly monitored and mentored by a black panther. In real-world terminology, Mowgli would be classified as a feral child. This means that he is a human child who has lived isolated from human contact from a very young age and has little to no experience of human care, social behavior, or the human language. There are actually real accounts of children who have been found in the 21st century who were raised by dogs, birds, and other animals. It's kind of neat but sad at the same time. Being lost and raised by animals isn't the only way to be classified as a feral child, however, which brings us to our event for today. On November 4th of 1970, a feral child was brought to Children's Hospital in Los Angeles when her mother tried to use her as a means of collecting benefits from a welfare office in Temple City, California. This feral child had never lived in the wilderness, nor had she been raised by animals. Her problem was her parents. This little girl quickly became known as Genie and had spent nearly all of the first 13 years of her life locked up in her bedroom. She was tied down to a children's potty chair during the day, and at night she was bound in a sleeping bag and placed in an enclosed crib that had a cover made of metal screening. If she tried to talk, she would be beaten by her father every time she made a sound. Due to this, she only knew about 20 words at the time of her rescue. After her rescue, Genie was used as a test subject to further prove the hypothesis that there are critical periods in child growth when training must begin for healthy development. One of the big ones being the ability to learn a first language. According to their research, Genie's vocabulary increased beyond their expectations, but her grasp of grammar and syntax was much slower than that of a typical child. After about 8 months at Children's Hospital, Genie was released to her first foster home. She only stayed there a month and would dance around between other foster homes before living with the scientist who studied her for about 4 years. When she turned 18, she moved back in with her mother, but naturally this idea was not a good one. Lastly, she was shifted between at least 6 different institutions for disabled adults when she received further physical and mental abuse. All this moving and instability caused Genie to once again regress into her feral child-like state. Sadly, ABC News reported that in 2008, Genie was living in California in psychological confinement as a ward of the state, her 6th foster home, and again, she is speechless. I hope that she has finally found stability since her last move, and maybe, just maybe, someone has connected with her who genuinely cares for her well-being. The story of Genie is terrible and saddening, and I can't imagine how disgusting her parents are. If they could not and they did not want to care for the child, why did they torture her the way they did? At least putting her up for adoption would have spared this young girl the agony of the life she was given. What do you think of Genie's story? Personally, I'm truly saddened by it and cannot believe that these parents confined her for 14 years without anybody noticing. Well, I apologize that today's story was very tragic and disheartening, but history is what it is. Maybe one day we will learn from these cases and be able to prevent something like this from happening. If this story hit home with you, please share it around with your friends and family on Facebook, Twitter, and Google+. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time.